It was one of those cases that made even the detective doubt the evidence. In his own hands. The moment that happens, you know the case has slipped beyond logic. With this file, every door we opened led to a bigger maze behind it. Everyone saw a different reflection in it. The truth here was like shattered glass. Who was the victim? Who was the killer? In this story, you are about to enter a spiral of doubt. The only certainty is that nothing you are about to hear is what it seems. Welcome to Moroccan Crime Files. I'm Hassan, and let's begin. Our story takes us to the outskirts of Agadir, to a small village surrounded only by forest. On March 14th, 2010, at around 12:30 at night, the residents saw flames raging in the middle of that forest. The fire was so high it covered the trees. Because their homes were so close, they were terrified the fire would spread to them if they didn't act fast. So they ran to try to put it out, and at the same time to find out where it had started. When they reached the middle of the woods, they saw a car completely engulfed in flames. It was clear this was the source, but the real shock came when they saw someone inside it. The problem was that the person had been burned beyond recognition. By the time the villagers got close enough, the fire had already consumed the entire car and was starting to spread to the brush around it. No matter how hard the villagers tried, they couldn't put it out. So they immediately called the police and the firefighters to get there quickly before it turned into a disaster. And that's exactly what happened. Once they got the call, officers and firefighters rushed to the scene. Luckily, the firefighters managed to bring the blaze under control and extinguish it. At that point, the police opened the car to see what had happened and who was inside. The first thing they noticed was a man sitting in the driver's seat. He was dead, and his body was completely charred. At the same time, they saw the car had no dents. There was no sign of a traffic accident. The frame was perfectly intact. Then, in one moment, they caught it, the overwhelming smell of gasoline inside the vehicle. That was when doubt crept in. Maybe this fire was deliberate. Maybe someone had set the car on fire on purpose to burn this man. And if that was true, then this was no longer just a fire. This was a criminal case. This was murder. The police notified the public prosecutor and called in the forensic team to examine the scene and confirm whether someone had committed murder. When the forensic team arrived and did their initial examination, they noticed two things. First, the driver wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Second, they estimated the man was probably in his 50s, but that was just a guess. No matter how much they examined the body, they couldn't tell anything more. It was too badly burned. Was he killed in some other way? Was someone brought here and set on fire inside his own car? Or was it another scenario the police hadn't figured out yet? When they searched inside the car, they found all its documents, but most of them were burned, so they couldn't identify the driver or even confirm if he was the owner. Then they opened the trunk. There was nothing inside. After finishing all procedures, the police transferred the body to the morgue for an autopsy. Meanwhile, the forensic team kept working at the scene, looking for any evidence, any footprints that could help. When they found nothing, they even brought in trained dogs. But even after a thorough sweep of the area, they found no traces and no samples. They took all the precautionary photos of the car and the area, then coordinated with the authorities and gave them the license plate number to find out who owned it. Even though the plate was burned, the numbers were still readable. Then the police started questioning the villagers. They asked standard questions for a case like this. Had anyone seen this car before? Did anyone know the owner? While you were trying to put out the fire, Did you see any strangers around or anyone trying to run away? Everyone said the same thing. They'd never seen the car before. And while they were fighting the fire, no one was there. At the same time, the vehicle registration service traced the car. It belonged to a man named Hafid, 47 years old, living in Agadir. And that's where the problem started. When the police received all the reports, they realized this car matched exactly the description of a car reported missing 10 days earlier. A woman had come in to report that both the car and her husband were missing. The husband's name was also Hafid, and he drove the same car. So the police called the wife in to inform her. When she walked into the station, they said, "We're sorry, but we found your husband's car burned in a forest outside the city. There was a man inside, dead. His condition was terrible. We can't identify him yet because he was burned so badly." At the same time, they still didn't know exactly what had happened to him or how the fire started. They told her they strongly suspected someone had set the fire, and it was very possible the man in the car was her husband. The moment she heard that, the woman broke down. She collapsed in the station. Of course, she wasn't expecting to hear that about her husband. It hit her like a shock. No matter how much the police tried to calm her, she couldn't stop crying. So they let her be until she settled down, then asked her to tell them anything she knew about her husband. According to her, she had been married to Hafid for many years, and they had 2 daughters. As for his work, it was never stable. He worked with his own capital. Anything that involved money, he was in it. Trade, real estate. He was a man with money. And she said their financial situation was good. They lacked nothing. Until recently, she started noticing that whenever someone knocked on the door or the phone rang, he would jump as if he was afraid of something. When she asked him why he was so tense, he said it was just work pressure. But she felt he was hiding something, especially when she noticed their financial problems getting worse. About 20 days before he disappeared, she said 3 men kept coming to the house asking for him. At first, he would go out and talk to them. Then he started telling her, if they came while he was home, to say he wasn't there or that he was traveling. And that's what she did. But she could tell they didn't believe her, because when she went outside, they were still standing in the alley, as if they were waiting for him to come out. Whenever she told him they were still waiting, he wouldn't leave the house at all. When she saw him hiding from them like that, she pressured him to tell her what was going on. Finally, he told her the truth. He owed them a lot of money and had nowhere to get it. She was shocked because she knew her husband had capital. When she asked where his money went, he said he'd been scammed in a deal and lost everything. Overnight, the man was broke. She said things stayed like that for a while, then got worse and worse until they were borrowing from everyone. After hearing her out, the police asked, "Tell us about the day your husband disappeared. What happened exactly?" She said that the night before he vanished, he spent the whole night thinking. He told her he was tired of these conditions, tired of hiding from the people he owed, and that he had to find a solution before things got worse. In the morning, he got up as usual, had breakfast, got dressed, and left. That was the last time she saw him. That night he didn't come home, so she called him. His phone was off. She spent the whole night waiting. In the morning, she called again. It was still off. She called his family. No one had heard from him. When she realized he was missing, she went straight to the police and reported it. Then the police asked her if she knew roughly how much money these people were demanding. She answered 63 million. When the police heard that amount, they immediately suspected those men. It was a huge sum. It was logical they might have taken revenge and killed him. They asked her for the names and addresses of those people. She said she had no idea. She'd only seen them when they came asking for her husband. The only thing she could give them were the addresses of some of her husband's business partners. They told the police they warned him to stay away from those people, but he did what he wanted. He got the money from somewhere else and went in with them. And just as they warned, a few days later he came to them looking terrible. He said those people took all his money, and worse, on top of his own money, he had borrowed 60 million from others. The police asked if they knew who these people were. They said no, but Hafid had told them he used to meet them at a certain cafe. The police went to that cafe immediately. The first person they questioned was the waiter. They showed him the victim's photo. The waiter recognized him right away. Hafid had been a regular for years. The police wanted the names of the people he met there. The waiter gave them all the names, about 4 of them. He said if they wanted to catch them, they came every day after Asr prayer. So that's what the police did. They waited outside until 5:25, then went in and found the 4 of them sitting together. They took them to the police station for questioning. They separated them and took statements. These 4 confirmed they did have a business relationship with the victim, but they swore they didn't take a single dirham. According to them, the farm owner scammed them all. But what the police still didn't know was who the people were who kept coming to the victim's house, demanding money. So the police asked them, "We have information that the victim borrowed a large amount from someone. Do you know who?" One of the 4 answered. When they were about to do that deal, Hafid said he was going to go to Larbi to borrow the rest of the money. Larbi was known for lending money with interest, and he had a criminal record. The police put those 4 in custody and sent a team to find Larbi. At that point, he was the prime suspect. It didn't take long. They brought him in. The first thing they did was put the victim's photo in front of him and say, "Tell us how you killed Hafid." Larbi jumped up in fear. "What are you saying? I didn't kill anyone." No matter how much pressure the police put on him, he stuck to his story. When they asked about the loan, he admitted it. Yes, he and his brothers went to the house asking for him because he owed them a lot of money. He said he took a check for double the amount as a guarantee. He admitted that at one point he threatened him with his children. "If you don't pay me back, I'll kill them." He admits that. But the murder? He swears he has nothing to do with it. The police needed concrete proof to believe him, so they kept investigating. And while they were holding him in custody, something happened that no one would have expected. The autopsy report and the DNA report on the body came out. A shock that flipped the whole case upside down. And that report caused a massive disaster. The autopsy report said the person found burned in the car was not Hafid. The DNA didn't match. The dead man had no connection to the person the police had been searching for. The autopsy also confirmed that this person had been murdered before he was burned in the car. The cause of death was strangulation. Someone had put a wire or rope around his neck and strangled him. Then they put him in the car, drove him to that spot, put him in the driver's seat, and set him and the car on fire to make it look like he burned to death in his own car. All of this forced the police to take the investigation in a completely different direction. Now the question was, who was the man found dead in Hafid's car? And the bigger problem was, where was Hafid? So they called his wife back in to tell her the new developments and question her again. When she came in, they told her everything. They informed her that the person found dead in her husband's car was someone else, not her husband. Hearing that, she started insisting, "No, that's not true. I'm sure that's my husband." At one point, she lost control and started screaming at the police, crying, "That's my husband. It can't be anyone else." This reaction made the police suspicious. Why wasn't she feeling relief that her husband might still be alive? Instead, She was desperate to convince them that the dead man was her husband. So what did the police do? They asked for her phone to send it to the criminal lab for analysis. At first it looked normal, but what raised their suspicion more were text messages she had been sending to one number. She would send them and delete them immediately. When they retrieved them, the content was very suspicious. Messages like, "Everything is going well. What we agreed on is happening." Another one, "There's not much left and soon we'll be free." Once they had this, the police brought her in again. They confronted her with the evidence. At first, she said, "It's family. I'm talking to my brother. Every time a different story." But the police said, "Stop lying to us. We have the address of that number you've been contacting. It's better for you to tell us the truth now." When she realized she was trapped, she finally decided to tell them everything. And that's when the truth came out. According to what she told the police, her husband was drowning in debt. The people he owed got to the point of threatening him. When Hafid felt his children were in danger, the world closed in on him. That's when an idea came to him, an idea even the devil wouldn't think of. What did he do? He and his wife agreed to kill someone, put him in their car, and set it on fire. The goal was to kill two birds with one stone, to get rid of the people he owed, because if they thought he was dead, they'd leave his family alone. And at the same time, they wouldn't be suspects. After they agreed, they left their phones at home so that if the police tracked them, it wouldn't show they were in the forest. Then they went straight to a poor homeless man who was well known in that area. Hafid went to him and said, "I have some work at a house in the countryside. I need you to clean the garden for me, and I'll pay you and give you clothes." The poor man thought God had sent him a job. He got in the car with them and they drove him to the forest. There Hafid pretended the car broke down and got out to check it. The man got out too to help him. In one moment, Hafid caught him off guard and strangled him with a wire until he was dead. And because they had planned this from the start, they had brought gasoline with them. They sat inside waiting for night to fall so no one would see them. As soon as it got dark, they poured a large amount of gasoline on the body and on the car, set it on fire, and left immediately. According to his wife, he then went and stayed with his family in the outskirts of Tarudant, planning to wait until the case cooled down and the creditor backed off. Then he'd find someone to smuggle him, his wife, and his children out of the country. That was his wife's full confession, and in coordination with the police in Tarudant, Hafid was arrested. Both of them were brought to trial, and in the end, both were sentenced to life in prison. As for his family who had hidden him, it turned out they knew nothing about it. And that's where our story ends. Look at what a person can do when he lets the evil inside him out.